So what should the curves of the body actually look like? So what we actually have is a nice extension curve of the neck, a nice extension curve of the lower back, and then a flexion curve of the upper body. So what we should have is a lovely balance between all three curves. Unfortunately, what happens is when we slump day to day, we completely change the mechanics of these curves, where everything slumps forward and the head comes forward. So we get a real anterior head carriage as well as an exaggerated flexion curve, and then typically straightening through the lower spine. So what we can see is a complete change in the curves of the spine. What this can lead to symptomatically is different areas of tightness and tension and pain building through the body, which is exactly what we want to avoid and why we want to change your posture when working. Typically in the long term, up into the neck area, when the head's coming forward, we get a lot of compression around the base of the head. This causes tightness and contraction through your suboccipital muscles here, as well as tension, clicking and pain within the neck. What happens with that is that can then trigger, for example, headaches. So you can start to get tightness around the top of the head, almost like a vice around the top, around the temporals here. We get a lot of tightness through the jaw, as well as tenderness and tightness around the neck. What we also get is a lot of tension around the base of the neck, where the head's coming forward. We're actually flexing through this area here, forming like a hump at the top of the head, at the top of the back, sorry. What then happens is the tension builds through. We get lots of tightness and tenderness around the traps and the scalenes, as well as tenderness and myalgia and muscle pain into the arms as well. What also happens when we slump is we typically round forward through the shoulders. What this does is it pinches and sometimes aggravates around the attachment of the rotator cuff muscles, as well as tenderness around the elbow and into the wrist. Long term, this can lead to impingement, rotator cuff muscle damage, so tendon damage. We get lateral and medial epicondylitis, so tennis and golfer's elbow, as well as repetitive strain and osteoarthritis and wear and tear into the wrist. This typically builds because we're not sitting in the right posture and we're repetitively contracting through very, very similar areas. What happens as we move lower down is we get a lot of tightness around the upper back. So where the spine has dropped forward, it has changed the mechanics of the joints and the action of the muscles. Over time they contract, contract, contract. That then becomes and builds into this chronic pain and tightness, not only causing tenderness around the spine, so the segments of the spine and the rib heads, but also contraction round into the front, into underneath the diaphragm, and obviously issues with the tummy as well, based on the fact that the nerves that supply the tummy come from the upper back too. So it can get worsening symptoms of IBS, for example. What happens in the lower back can be broken down into two categories, where we typically lose the curve of the lower spine. We put a lot more pressure through the discs and the joints. Between the ages of 25 and 35, you're at a higher risk of a disc herniation and a prolapse disc, due to the fact that there's increased hydration through this area still, so you can get symptoms of sciatica and pain across the lower back. Over the age of 35 to 40, when you change the mechanics through here, you put abnormal stresses through the spine, causing bone to form and pressure to build into that lower spine, which can lead to DDD, so degenerative disc disease, which causes stiffness, tenderness and pain.